Can I borrow from an IRA? Can you borrow from an IRA? Can anybody borrow from an IRA? Let's find out. Hi, this is Matt from Let's Not Be Fools, the channel that brings you financial and other advice a couple times a week. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Let's talk about borrowing from an IRA. Borrowing from an IRA, well, technically, there is no IRA loan. You can execute an indirect rollover of money from a traditional or Roth IRA into another IRA account to get a short-term, that is 60-day access to your money. So in essence, you can sort of get this float time between accounts and consider that a loan, but again, it's not really a loan. However, the indirect rollover strategy has many drawbacks. Before we talk about an indirect rollover, let's talk about a direct rollover. That's just rolling over money from one account to another directly. So let's say you have a retirement account with Vanguard and you want to roll that money into a new account with Fidelity. Well, then Vanguard is going to issue a check to Fidelity directly. You're never going to touch the money. Whereas with an indirect rollover, you're going to have that custodian send the check to you, and it's your responsibility to roll that money into a new account with a new custodian. So that old account is going to send a check to you. Your obligation is to then send the check to your new IRA account custodian, and you have 60 days to do that, or you're going to pay an income tax plus a penalty. So you can see how you can use an indirect rollover to get short-term access to your money. But really, you're not even going to have that 60 days. It's going to take a few days for your current custodian to issue that check. You're going to have to put that check into your bank. It may take a few days to clear. Then you have the money there. But then again, you're going to have to transfer that money to the new custodian before that 60-day period is up. And you're going to have to leave some time on the back end of that to be able to do that. So you're going to lose some days on the front end getting your money from the old custodian. You're going to lose some days on the back end transferring that money back to the new custodian. So you're really not even going to have close to 60 days with that money. You're going to have maybe 50 days if you're lucky, 40 days, 45 days maybe. So a few things to point out. With a Roth IRA, you can withdraw your original contributions without taxes or the early withdrawal penalty anytime. That is, if you made original contributions to that Roth IRA. However, if converted from a traditional Roth, you have a 5-year waiting period that applies to avoid the penalty. And with a Roth IRA, your original contributions are tax-free, but the gains are always subject to taxes and early withdrawal penalties if those apply. Then with the traditional IRA, remember, all of that was pre-tax dollars, so all funds are subject to taxes and the early withdrawal penalty if it applies. You are limited to one rollover per year, and generally there are some exceptions for qualified distribution, i.e. home purchases or disability circumstances. So keep that in mind. So in conclusion, I'd say borrowing from an IRA is risky business. You probably should not do it. 401k loans are much better. If you have money in a 401k plan and can borrow from that, I recommend that. So again, technically you can't really borrow from an IRA. Trying to work the system so you can get a short-term loan through an IRA indirect rollover is really risky. I don't recommend doing it. Too many things can go wrong, and really the amount of time that you have the money isn't worth the risk of doing it. So again, no, you can't technically borrow from an IRA, but you can do the things that I described. Though I don't recommend it. Have a great day.